Welcome to this audiobook, generated entirely by artificial intelligence. The voice you'll be hearing is also computer-generated, using the latest in text-to-speech technology. The story you're about to hear is a thrilling tale of a man who finds himself trapped in Graceland, the former home of Elvis Presley. As he tries to find a way out, he discovers that he's not alone in the house, and that something sinister is lurking in the shadows. Using the power of language models and natural language processing, this story was crafted to keep you on the edge of your seat, with unexpected twists and turns that will keep you guessing until the very end. So sit back, relax, and let the power of AI take you on a journey into the dark and mysterious world of Graceland. It was a dark and stormy night when David pulled up to the gates of Graceland. He had been a lifelong fan of Elvis Presley, and he had finally saved up enough money to take the tour of the legendary musician's former home. As he stepped out of his car and approached the gates, he could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He had never been to Memphis before, and the sheer size and grandeur of the estate left him feeling awestruck. But as he made his way through the tour, something started to feel off. The other visitors began to disappear one by one, until David found himself completely alone. He tried to call out for someone, anyone, but the only sound that greeted him was the echo of his own voice bouncing off the walls. It was then that he realized he was trapped. David started to panic. He knew that the museum closed at 5 p.m., and it was well past midnight now. He was alone, trapped in the home of his hero, with no way out. He tried to find a phone to call for help, but all the lines were dead. He tried to break a window, but they were all reinforced with steel bars. He was completely and utterly stuck. As the hours ticked by, David started to feel a creeping sense of unease. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him from the shadows. He tried to tell himself that it was just his imagination, but the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, and his heart raced faster with every passing moment. It was then that he heard it, a soft, muffled sound coming from somewhere deep within the house. David tried to follow the noise, but it seemed to move, leading him down darkened corridors and into empty rooms. But as he turned a corner, he saw it. A figure, shrouded in darkness, standing at the end of the hallway. David froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He tried to run, but his legs felt heavy and uncooperative. As the figure started to move towards him, David could feel his breath catching in his throat. And then, suddenly, the lights came on. David blinked, his eyes struggling to adjust to the sudden brightness. When he opened them again, he saw that the figure was gone. He tried to make sense of what had just happened, but his mind was in a whirlwind. Had it all been a trick of the light? A figment of his imagination? As he made his way back through the house, he started to notice something strange. The furniture had all been rearranged. The paintings had been taken down and replaced with strange, twisted works of art. David felt a creeping sense of dread wash over him as he realized that he was not alone in this house. There was something here with him, something malevolent and dark. He tried to find a way out, but every door and window was locked tight. It was as though the house itself was conspiring to keep him trapped inside. As the night wore on, David started to hear more strange noises, footsteps echoing through the halls, whispers in the darkness. And then suddenly, a voice spoke to him. It was a low, rumbling sound, like the growl of an animal. "David," it said, "I've been waiting for you." David tried to scream, but the words caught in his throat. He knew that he was no longer alone in this house. He turned around, and there it was. A figure, tall and imposing, with a face that was twisted into a snarl. It was then that David realized that he was face to face with the ghost of Elvis Presley. The king of rock and roll. David stood frozen in fear as the ghost of Elvis Presley loomed before him. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, but he knew that he had to find a way to escape. "Elvis, please, I don't know what's happening," David pleaded. "I'm just a fan who got stuck in here. Please let me go." But the ghost of Elvis didn't seem to be listening. It continued to advance on David, its eyes filled with a rage that was almost palpable. David turned and ran, sprinting through the darkened halls of Graceland as fast as he could. But no matter how fast he ran, he couldn't seem to shake the ghostly apparition. He could hear its footsteps pounding the floor behind him, its breathing hot on his neck. He knew that he was in grave danger, and that his only chance was to find a way out. Just as he was about to give up hope, David stumbled upon a hidden staircase. It led him down into the basement of the house, where he found a small window that had been left unlocked. David wasted no time, crawling through the window and emerging into the rain-soaked night. He was free. But as he stood up and turned to look back at Graceland, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The ghost of Elvis Presley was standing at the window, looking out at him with a malevolent gaze. David shuddered, knowing that he had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. But he also knew that the terror wasn't over yet. As he made his way back to his car, David couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He felt eyes on him, following his every move. And then, just as he was about to unlock the door of his car, he heard it. A low growl, like the one that the ghost of Elvis had made. David turned around, his heart pounding in his chest. And there, standing before him, was the ghost of Elvis Presley once again. But this time, there was something different about him. His face was twisted in a snarl, but it wasn't the same snarl that David had seen before. This was a snarl of fear, of desperation. "David, you have to help me," the ghost of Elvis said, his voice trembling. "I've been trapped in this house for decades, unable to move on. Please, you have to help me find a way out." David was shocked. He had expected the ghost to be angry, vengeful, but he had never imagined that it would be pleading for his help. "What can I do?" David asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's a room in the house that has a hidden door," the ghost of Elvis said. "It's the only way out. Please, find it and help me move on." David nodded, knowing that he had no other choice. He followed the ghost of Elvis back into the house, and together they searched for the hidden room. Finally, after what felt like hours of searching, they found it. The door was hidden behind a bookshelf, and it led to a small room filled with old memorabilia and dusty furniture. The ghost of Elvis stepped inside, and David followed. As he did, he felt a sudden gust of wind, as though something was rushing past him. And then, just like that, the ghost of Elvis was gone. David stood there for a moment, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had he really helped a ghost move on to the afterlife? But then he heard a noise, coming from the other side of the room. He turned around, and saw that the bookshelf was starting to move, sliding away from the wall to reveal a hidden passage. David hesitated for a moment, but then curiosity got the better of him. He stepped through the opening and found himself in a dark, narrow hallway. As he made his way down the corridor, he heard strange noises all around him. It was as though the house was alive, creaking and groaning under the weight of secrets that it had kept hidden for years. Finally, he reached the end of the hallway and found himself in a small room. It was dimly lit, and he could just make out the shape of a figure sitting in the corner. As he approached, he realized that it was a woman. She was young, with long blonde hair and a haunted expression. "Are you okay?" David asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "What are you doing here?" The woman looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. "I've been trapped here for years," she said, her voice trembling. "I was brought here against my will, and I've been forced to live in this room ever since." David felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard rumors about Graceland, about the secrets that were hidden within its walls. But he had never imagined that something like this could be true. "We have to get you out of here," he said, offering the woman his hand. "Come on, let's go." Together, they made their way back through the hidden passage and into the main house. As they emerged into the light, David could see that something had changed. The house was no longer dark and foreboding. It was filled with light and life, as though the spirits that had haunted it for so long had finally been laid to rest. David led the woman out of the house and into the rain-soaked night. As they stepped outside, he could feel a sense of peace wash over him. He had come to Graceland as a fan, hoping to catch a glimpse of the magic that had made Elvis Presley a legend. But he had ended up finding something far more valuable, the chance to help a lost soul find her way home.